Remember playing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl for the first time and stumbling into the old chateau? That creepy abandoned mansion deep in Eterna Forest with its ominous music, Ghost Girl floating in the upstairs bedroom, and that butler phantom in the dining hall. The whole place felt genuinely haunted. But the creepiest part? That room with the TV that had a malevolent feel and seemed to be staring at you. Most of us probably checked it out once during the day, got that eerie message, and moved on. But if you came back between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. with the National Dex and actually chose to thump the TV, Rotom's cry would play and this level 15 Ghost Electric type would jump out of the screen to battle you. That moment was incredible. Not only was it this perfectly executed creepy reveal, but Rotom itself introduced a type combination we'd never seen before, Ghost Electric. Later generations would expand on this Rotom's form changes, making it one of the most versatile Pokemon in the game with access to 5 different type combinations. So that got me thinking, just how good is Ghost as a defensive typing? In my previous videos, I ranked the dual types for various other combinations. This time I'm tackling Ghost types, and I won't be relying solely on the base point totals to rank them. Instead, I'll use personal judgment combined with the meta defensive scores as well as the base scores. Using both a basic point sum algorithm and something a little bit more in depth, a clear hierarchy of defensive types emerges. Now, where Ghost fits in is fascinating, but I'll save my pure Ghost typing analysis for whichever ranking it may achieve. Without further ado, let's dive into the rankings. Starting us off at number 18, Ghost and Ice unsurprisingly tails the other combinations. It's not the worst typing in and of itself, it only has 5 total weaknesses, but those weaknesses, however, are to fairly common offensive types. The immunities to normal and fighting are always nice though, giving it some niche defensive utility just by nature of being a Ghost type. The only Pokemon with this type combination so far is Frostlass. With its very mediocre bulk but decent speed, Frostlass gets very few opportunities to actually switch in and take hits. It's much better suited as a fast offensive spin blocker with lead rather than any kind of defensive pivot. I do believe Frostlass is getting a Mega Evolution in Legends EA, which is really exciting. What do you think Mega Frostlass is going to look like stat-wise? My guess is they'll lean into the speed even more, maybe give it a boosted special attack, and fully turn it into a proper glass cannon sweeper rather than trying to patch up its defensive shortcomings. All in all, Ghost and Ice sits at a +2 meta defensive score, which honestly feels about right. The typing has a little potential, but so far in practice, the weaknesses to common priority moves and hazards combined with the Ice's general fragility keep it firmly at the bottom of the rankings. Next up at number 17 is Ghost and Rock. Not surprising that this falls just below Ice like in most videos, this type combination has 6 weaknesses to common offensive types, with only a handful of resistances and immunities to show for it. The one redeeming quality here is that Ghost gives the Rock type a fighting immunity, which is genuinely huge since fighting moves are one of Rock's most crippling weaknesses. Interestingly enough, there are currently no Ghost Rock Pokemon in the game. However, Garganacl can sometimes be seen running the Ghost Terra type to avoid pesky fighting types hitting their close combats. This works incredibly well due to Purifying Salt also having Ghost type moves, giving it effectively one weakness as a Ghost type, just Dark. Let me just say, Purifying Salt warding off Ghost moves is just incredible thematically too. All in all, Ghost Rock sits at a +2.8 meta defensive score, which puts it just barely above Ghost and Ice. The lack of any actual Pokemon with this typing means it can be pretty difficult to evaluate, but luckily Garganacl gives us a little bit of insight into what that might look like. Barely squirming in above number 17, we have the Ghost and Bug type combination. These creepy crawlies have the unfortunate circumstance of having 5 total weaknesses. Luckily, the 4 resistances plus 2 immunities to normal and fighting almost make up for it. Almost. Particularly noteworthy, Shedinja is the only Pokemon with this typing, and it boasts the ability Wonder Guard, which even further highlights this typing's shortcomings. Wonder Guard prevents all damaging moves from hitting unless they are super effective. The problem is that having 5 total weaknesses means it's exceedingly likely that at least 1 or 2 Pokemon on any given team can outright squash this bug since it only has 1 singular HP. Not to mention chip weather effects like Sandstorm and hazards like Stealth Rocks immediately OHKO Shedinja on switch-in. Also, its offensive stats and speed are severely lacking to make up for its absurd ability, so even when it does get a safe switch-in, it's not exactly threatening anything. Ghost Bug sits at a +3 meta defensive score, which honestly feels generous considering how Shedinja's existence warps how we evaluate this typing. In a vacuum without Wonder Guard, this would be a pretty mediocre defensive typing, but Shedinja's gimmick makes it impossible to judge normally since it either walls you completely or dies instantly to any stray super effective move, hazards, weather damage, or status. At number 15, Ghost and Grass also sits with a +3 meta defensive score. I elected to put Grass higher than Bug due to its nature of resisting water and electric, which are just a bit better resistances than Poison and Bug when you're actually trying to switch into attacks. Ghost Grass also has 5 total weaknesses, which definitely hurts. However, the solid defensive resistance pool plus the immunities definitely help compensate. There are also many different Ghost Grass types to choose from. From Haunted Pumpkins to Haunted Teacups, nearly every Ghost Grass type is built with defense in mind. Gorgeous, Delmies, and Sinistra really exemplify the typing's benefits, with all 3 sporting respectable bulk and access to recovery or support moves. Sinistra especially shines. It can come into doubles and heal up its partner with hospitality, or even thrive in singles where Heatproof eliminates one of its weaknesses entirely. It also has access to amazing support moves like Rage Powder, Trick Room, and the absolutely broken Matcha Gotcha for both damage and recovery. Being able to pivot into common offensive types gives these Pokemon actual opportunities to switch in and do their job. Unlike Ghost Bug, which just kind of hopes nothing has a super effective move, that alone justifies the slightly higher placement over Ghost and Bug, even with the same meta score. Ancient Dragons, Immortal Spirits sounds like the recipe for an unstoppable monster. Ghost and Dragon lands all the way at number 14, proving that even unique sounding combinations need additional help to back them up. These two types don't cover each other's weaknesses at all, but they do combine to a solid defensive profile with 5 weaknesses, 6 resistances, and 2 immunities. Yet it's still ranked 14th due to lack of synergy. Having 5 weaknesses means something on your opponent's team will almost certainly hit it hard. 2 Pokemon exist with this type: Giratina, a very bulky legendary, and Dragapult, a fast offensive dragon with split attacking stats. Giratina definitely embodies the defensive nature of this typing, being able to live multiple super effective hits thanks to its absurd 150, 120, 120 bulk. This massive HP pool combined with amazing defenses means this legendary spirit will live even a choice banded Wicked Blow from Urshifu, which is incredibly impressive for a super effective move. Dragapult, on the other hand, makes use of the typing's natural bulk, sometimes in VGC formats, by being a fast, reflect, and light screen setter with access to Surf for self-proc strategies, though that Surf strategy usually employed Steam Engine Colasol back in Gen 8 with Dynamax formats. Doubling Colasol's health made the chip damage from Surf worth it. Without Dynamax, Surf just chips too much HP to justify the setup, so Dragapult mostly just relies on its natural speed and offenses rather than playing defensively. The typing gives it some nice resistances to pivot in on occasion, but it's not winning any awards for being a defensive wall. Does anyone even remember the move Bide? 2 turns of getting hit and then retaliating with massive force is essentially what it did. It's no longer a move now though. Instead we have Rage Fist on Annihilate, which gets 50 more base power every time it gets hit. This is thematically perfect for a ghost fighting type. Sitting at a plus 5.2 meta defensive score, this pairing has one crucial synergy. Fighting covers Ghost's natural dark weakness. With 4 total weaknesses, 3 resistances, and 2 immunities, it barely edges out Ghost Dragon simply because having one less weakness can make all the difference when you're trying to find safe switch-in opportunities. This type also has very few Pokemon within it. Marshadow is a unique mythical Pokemon with respectable bulk, but it primarily builds offensively with access to Spectral Thief, being able to steal opponents' stat boosts and use it against them. It's more about hitting hard and fast than tanking hits, though the bulk does help it survive neutral hits. Annihilate, on the other hand, is an extremely bulky, angry ape that perfectly showcases this typing's defensive potential. As I mentioned, Rage Fist ensures that Annihilate always wants to survive attacks and heal up with Drain Punch. Many sets make use of this with max defensive EVs, plus a partner like Mousehold to beat it up repeatedly, turning Annihilate into a nuclear bomb. In singles, it's also an extremely effective U-turn absorber, and Bulk Up plus Drain Punch ensure it can be nearly impossible to take down once it gets going. The more you hit it, the stronger it gets, which is absolutely terrifying. Which types have triple immunity? Only combinations with Ghost are able to make that claim. Ghost and Flying at number 12 might not cover each other's weaknesses particularly well, but when you're immune to normal fighting and ground, you've got switch-in opportunities for days. Sitting at a 5.5 meta defensive score with 5 weaknesses, 3 resistances, and those 3 immunities, this typing basically dares physical attackers to do anything meaningful to it. Unfortunately, we only have one singular Pokemon with this type, and it's weird. Drifblim has one of the strangest stat distributions in the game. 150 base HP paired with a laughable 44 defense and 54 special defense. With enough defensive EVs, you can actually make Drifblim surprisingly tanky. easily, but invest too much and suddenly your offense is non-existent. This can make Drifblim incredibly difficult to build properly. Additionally, Drifblim gets Unburdened, which doubles its speed after consuming a held item. Pair this with any terrain setter and run a terrain seed, boosting its defense or special defense, and suddenly you've got a bulky, blazing fast support Pokemon that can set Tailwind and even heal itself with Strength Sap. It's honestly one of the most unique Pokemon ever designed, a defensive speedster that turns terrain into both bulk and speed simultaneously. Its sheer versatility really ensures that you can never know just what exactly it's trying to accomplish. Personally, I love to use this Pokemon in Draft League VGC teams thanks to exactly that. Ever wondered what happens when the ethereal meets the earthly? Ghost Ground delivers one of the most bipolar defensive profiles in all of Pokemon, a typing that lands at a modest score of 5.5 despite housing some genuinely impressive defensive specialists. This combination brings 5 weaknesses, 3 resistances, and 3 immunities to the table, creating a defensive identity that's simultaneously blessed with incredible utility and cursed with glaring holes. The synergy here creates some genuinely beautiful defensive moments. Ground's electric immunity pairs beautifully with Ghost's normal and fighting immunities, completely walling some of the most common physical attacks in competitive play. But this typing still hemorrhages to common offensive moves that experienced players ruthlessly exploit. 3 Pokemon have stepped up to represent this typing, each taking drastically different approaches. Palossand stands as the true defensive champion with a massive 85, 110, and 75 bulk, and Water Compaction turns its biggest weakness into a +2 defensive boost. This sandy castle can genuinely wall entire teams if it gets rolling. Runerigus takes the specialist route with elite 145 defense and solid 105 special defense, functioning as one of the premier physical walls in the game, while Wandering Spirit disrupts opposing strategies. Meanwhile, Golurk plays the bruiser role with a base 124 attack and respectable 89, 80, 80 bulk, serving as a trick room sweeper that can actually take a few hits. Each proves that Ghost Ground isn't just viable, it's actively dangerous when you build around its defensive strengths rather than lamenting its weaknesses. The Psychic Mind and the Spectral Form, two of the most mystical forces in Pokemon, collide in a typing that's synergistic in all the wrong ways. Ghost and Psychic at number 10 sits at a +6 meta defensive score. Interestingly, both types share the exact same weaknesses. That means you're looking at 4 times weaknesses to both Ghost and Dark moves. Yeah, you heard that right. Quadruple the pain from 2 of the most common offensive types in the game. However, that's literally all it's weak to, which makes it somewhat usable as long as no stray knockoffs are lurking on the opposing team. The Pokemon with this typing are Hoopa Confined, Lunala, and Calyrex Shadow Rider. Hoopa and Calyrex lean heavily offensive, and Calyrex's case, we're talking about one of the most oppressive threats in all of competitive Pokemon. Instead, I'll focus on Lunala, who's had a surprising resurgence as a bulky Trick Room setter. Shadow Shield halves any damage move while Lunala is at full health. Combine that with access to Wide Guard to protect partners and Meteor Beam for actual damage output, and you've got everything you need to survive and support. Terastallization is absolutely clutch for this typing too. Being able to Terra into literally anything else means you can instantly erase those crippling 4 times weaknesses and gain a much better defensive profile. Suddenly, Lunala goes from please don't have knockoff to actually being able to take hits and set up Trick Room reliably. Without Terra though, you're basically praying your opponent didn't bring one of the 2 most common attacking types in the game. Halfway through the list, Ghost and Fire clocks in with a 6.5 meta score, and it's yet another purely additive type combination. Actually, most pairings with Ghost end up being additive since Ghost doesn't have too many weaknesses or resistances to work with in the first place. This combination lands on 5 weaknesses, 7 resistances, and 2 immunities, giving it legitimately solid switching opportunities. 7 resistances is nothing to scoff at when you're trying to find moments to get your Pokemon on the field safely. I've already covered this in the Fire type video, but it's worth revisiting because this typing has a ton of different Pokemon, many of which lean offensive. Gen 9, Skeledirge, and Ceruledge make the most of its defensive benefits though. Skeledirge can completely ignore opposing stat changes with Unaware, while simultaneously boosting its own special attack repeatedly with Torch Song, turning it into a snowballing special wall that actually threatens back. Ceruledge takes a different approach. After a Sword Stance boost, Bitter Blade heals a massive chunk of health, making it nearly impossible to take down once it gets rolling. You're essentially racing against a clock before it becomes unkillable, much akin to Annihilate mentioned earlier. Then there's Chandelure, who's stuck in this awkward middle ground of wanting to be both offensive and defensive without committing to either. It doesn't have the speed to be a proper sweeper, nor does it have the bulk to be a reliable wall. It just kind of exists in limbo with decent stats across the board, but nothing exceptional. Ghost and Poison at number 8 sits comfortably at a 7.2 score, and while these types don't synergize in any flashy ways, they both individually have only 2 weaknesses. Combine them and you're looking at just 4 total weaknesses. Extremely workable for a defensive Pokemon. Throw in the regular Ghost immunities plus Poison's resistance to Fairy, and suddenly you've got a typing that can actually pivot into some of the metagame's most common threats. Fairy resistance alone is huge in modern generations, where Moonblast gets tossed around like candy. Up until Generation 9's DLC introduced Pecharon, the only Pokemon with this typing was Gengar and its Mega Evolution, both oriented heavily towards offense rather than defense. Sure, Mega Gengar had decent bulk, but you weren't exactly throwing it in front of attacks. It wanted to trap things with Shadow Tag and blow them up, not tank hits. Pecharon changed everything though, finally showing us what Ghost Poison can do when it actually commits to defense. Pecharon is currently sitting pretty in singles OU thanks to its incredible 160 base defense and a supportive move pool that includes reliable recovery. It's basically a wall that refuses to go down, and it's already immune to Toxic just by being a poison type, massively increasing its longevity. No chip damage from status means it can sit on physical attackers all day while recovering off any damage. It also has access to Parting Shot, allowing it to maneuver easily between your entire team. Ghost Water also clocks in at number 7 with another 7.2 score, matching Ghost Poison's total. Here's the thing though, much like Ghost Poison, these two types each bring only 2 weaknesses to create 4 total. But instead of stacking into 4 times resistances, Water spreads things out into more manageable 2 times resistances, which is exactly why I ranked it above Ghost Poison. Plus, Water's resistance to fire, ice, and steel can be absolutely clutch in the right circumstances, and are generally more valuable than a 4 times poison or bug resistance. 2 Pokemon exist with this typing, Basculegion and Jellicent. Jellicent particularly shines as the defensive showcase here, utilizing its 170-105 base bulk to full effect. And here's where it gets even better. It can run Water Absorb, giving it another immunity that actually heals it. Jellicent may not look incredible when you're just staring at raw stats, but combine that solid bulk with an incredible defensive typing, and you've got a Pokemon that's both difficult to take down and annoying enough that you can't just ignore it. Back when Jellicent debuted in Black and White, it sat comfortably in OU for singles as a solidly bulky wall that could check threats all day. Unfortunately, it's since fallen all the way down to PU thanks to the generation after generation of power creep. Turns out that when every new Pokemon hits harder and faster, being a reliable but unspectacular wall just doesn't cut it anymore. It's still solid for what it does, but the game simply evolved past it. Ghost and Electric bursts onto the scene at number 6 with an 8.4 score, and the numbers here are genuinely impressive. These types combine to just 3 total weaknesses, an incredibly low amount that immediately catches your eye. Stack on 5 resistances and 2 immunities, and you've got one of the best type combinations from a pure number standpoint in the entire game. So why is this sitting at number 6 and not higher? Simple. Everything above this doesn't just have good numbers, they actually synergize with Ghost to create an even better combination. We're about to witness some of the absolute best defensive pairings in all of Pokemon. Ghost and Electric only has 1 Pokemon within it, and its base form Rotom, which honestly isn't spectacular in any way, shape, or form. Its alternative forms all have better stat distributions, bumping the total up from Rotom's base 440. Base Rotom is basically the forgotten middle child that nobody uses because, well, why would you when Wash Rotom or Heat Rotom exist? If a Pokemon ever got released with a bulk similar to Rotom's other forms but kept this same Ghost and Electric typing, it could be an absolute menace. 3 weaknesses means easy pivoting opportunities, and Ghost and Electric both have solid offensive presence, so you're not just sitting there tanking hits for no reason. You'd actually threaten back while being incredibly difficult to break through. It's a typing with massive untapped potential, just waiting for a Pokemon to gain the bulky stats it deserves. Okay, how does a solo typing end up all the way at number 5? Pure Ghost sits at an 8.6 meta score, and the answer is simple. It has an extremely solid base weakness and resistance pool that needs no help from a secondary type. Just 2 weaknesses, 2 resistances, and 2 immunities. Outside of Steel, it rivals Fire from a pure number standpoint for defensive typing. Not to mention, Ghost is also one of the best offensive types in the game, with only Normal and Dark resisting or ignoring its moves. Defense and offense in one package. There have been several pure Ghost types over the years, but never one quite like Dusclops. You heard me right, Dusclops, not Dusknoir, its evolution. Yeah, the middle stage. Dusclops may only have 40 base HP, but it packs 130 in both defense and special defense. On its own, this isn't, like, fantastic or anything, but you slap an Eviolite on this thing with max HP EVs and its defensive stats legitimately rival Shuckles. That's not an exaggeration, we're talking about one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the entire game that's not even fully evolved. Now, Dusclops has primarily been used as an extremely bulky Trick Room setter, running supportive moves like Will-O-Wisp and Nightshade to cripple opposing attackers while chipping away at their health. It also saw serious use in Dynamax formats during Generation 8, partnered with tanky Trick Room sweepers like Rhyperior. The strategy was beautiful. Bulldoze triggered Rhyperior's weakness policy for an attack boost while simultaneously lowering its speed to maximize Trick Room turns. All the while, Dusclops just refuses to die in the corner, pure ghost typing at its defensive finest. Spirits and Fey Folk. Funny how two of the most ethereal mystical forces in Pokemon create one of the most oppressively good defensive typings in the game. Ghost and Fairy at number 4 boasts an 11.1 score, and here's why. It only has 2 total weaknesses while packing 3 immunities and a 4 times resistance to bug. Yeah, it doesn't have many resistances overall, but when you're immune to 3 entire types and only weak to 2, who cares? This typing is borderline broken from a defensive standpoint. There have been 2 Pokemon with this typing so far, Mimikyu and Fluttermane, and oh how utterly broken Fluttermane turned out to be. Even with a mediocre 55 HP and 55 defense, EV training for bulk while using the booster energy to boost speed or special attack turns Fluttermane into something that's both incredibly tanky and offensively terrifying. There's a reason it got banned from OU almost immediately after its introduction in Generation 9. It's simply too much. When a Pokemon can survive hits it has no business surviving while also nuking you back twice as hard, something's gone wrong. Mimikyu has the unfortunate stat distribution preventing it from truly maximizing its amazing type combination like Fluttermane does. But here's the thing, its disguise ability gives it a free hit, meaning you can nearly always set up a Swords Dance or Trick Room depending on your format. You're essentially guaranteed at least 1 turn of setup, and with this typing's defensive profile, that's often all you need. It may not be broken like Fluttermane, but it's still incredibly effective at what it does. Alright. Ghost and Steel at number 3. What happened to Steel's reign of terror of topping every single defensive typing list? Well, unfortunately for Steel fans everywhere, that streak ends here with an 11.7 meta defensive score. Even with Ghost removing Steel's crippling fighting weakness, which is huge, it still only lands at number 3 purely because it has 4 total weaknesses. Don't get me wrong, it makes incredible use of the resistances and immunities both types bring to the table. I know it's hard to believe, but the next 2 typings have even better synergy and even more defensive potential. The Pokemon with this typing showcase exactly why it's still top tier despite not being number 1. Aegislash and Golden-Go both put the defensive nature of Ghost Steel on full display. Aegislash can seamlessly switch between its forms with stance change, maintaining defensive composure when it needs to tank hits while outputting massive damage with Kink Shield protecting it between attacks. It's essentially 2 Pokemon in one, a wall and a nuke that swaps on command. Golden-Go is the real star here. Its incredible bulk combined with offensive stats and Make It Rain make it an absolute menace in Regulation H where stronger legendaries aren't allowed. Make It Rain hitting both opponents in double battles for 120 base power while only dropping special attack 1 stage makes it an incredibly powerful move. In singles OU, Golden-Go exists as the premier spin and defog blocker thanks to Good as Gold, with reliable recovery and recover and strong damage output. You literally cannot remove its hazards and it just keeps healing and attacking. It's oppressive, it's everywhere, and it's exactly why Ghost Steel deserves this spot. At number 2 sits Ghost and Dark with a staggering 13.3 score, and here's a fun fact. Prior to Fairy type's introduction in Generation 6, this combination had literally 0 weaknesses. Since Fairy has crashed the party though, it now has exactly 1 weakness, which is still absolutely incredible. This typing may lack some of the impressive resistances that Ghost Steel brings, but when you can only be hit super effectively by a single type in the entire game, you become exceptionally difficult to take down with the right defensive stats backing you up. Spiritomb and Sableye are the only Pokemon with this typing, and both showcase its potential in different ways. Sableye doesn't have the raw defensive stats, it really needs to be a proper wall, but here's where it gets creative. Prankster Priority combined with only one weakness means it can set up Reflect, Light Screen, or even Weather while tanking 2 or more neutral hits before going down. It turns bulk it doesn't actually have into practical survivability through sheer typing advantage and priority support moves. Spiritomb actually has legitimately solid bulk despite a relatively low HP stat. 108 defense and 108 special defense are nothing to scoff at. Disappointingly, Spiritomb doesn't have access to enough useful supportive moves or adequate damage output to justify running it over other options. It's stuck in this weird limbo where it can tank neutral hits all day long, but then what? It's not threatening anything, it's not supporting the team particularly well, it just exists. If you purely wanted something to absorb neutral damage, it does that job fantastically, but in competitive Pokemon you usually need to do more than just exist. And here we are, the pinnacle, the best defensive ghost typing in the entire game. You might be expecting Steel, you might have thought it would be Dark, but no. At number 1 with a ridiculous 14.3 score sits Normal and Ghost, a combination so perfectly synergistic it almost feels like cheating. This typing displays some of the most elegant type synergy you'll see anywhere in Pokemon. Normal is immune to Ghost's Ghost weakness, while Ghost is immune to Normal's fighting weakness. That leaves only a single Dark weakness while maintaining Ghost's Bug and Poison resistances, which is exactly why it edges out Ghost Dark for the top spot. This combination creates a defensive profile that under the right circumstances with proper stats would be nearly impossible to remove from the field. With only one representative of this type being Hisuian Zoroark, we unfortunately don't get to see this typing reach its full potential. Hisuian Zoroark can make some use of the defensive benefits with its illusion ability, disguising itself as another Pokemon to bait out normal or fighting type moves. You can easily trick opponents into wasting turns while outputting decent damage with its solid special attack. It's a fun mind game that capitalizes on the typing's immunities. But Hisuian Zoroark has genuinely awful defensive stats. 55 HP, 60 defense and special defense means it rarely survives strong neutral hits, let alone anything remotely powerful. It's made of paper. If a Pokemon with this typing ever gets released with actual defensive stats, like we're talking 100 plus in HP or defenses, it may very well become one of the best Pokemon in the entire game. One weakness, 3 immunities, and solid resistances with real bulk behind it, that's a recipe for an unstoppable defensive wall. And there you have it, all 18 Ghost type combinations ranked by their defensive capabilities, from Ghost Ice struggling at the bottom with its common weaknesses all the way up to Normal Ghost sitting at the top with near perfect type synergy and just one exploitable weakness. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Ghost's defensive pairings, let me know in the comments which type you want to see next. Also, please subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm thinking either Water or Dragon could be interesting since they both have tons of dual type combinations to analyze. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.